Our story begins with our protagonist clenching his teeth and slamming his hand in anger. Our protagonist's name is Amaike Leo, and he was a jobless player. Today, his whole party was wiped out because the system continuously warned him of something unknown. He immediately looked back in fear and was surprised to see a huge monster with many hands glaring at him. The system warned him that an unknown object had been detected in the game, and its species, abilities, level, and identity were unknown. This encounter would change Leo's destiny. Paradise Heaven was a game released 10 years ago and has now merged with the real world, turning into an MMORPG dungeon. Dungeons and monsters have appeared worldwide, and the survivors of these dungeons are now known as players. 2 hours ago, in an uninhabitable zone called Nonecumene, a man shouted at them not to slack off if they wanted their bonus. He ordered Leo, a man with glasses, to pick up the pace, to which Leo tiredly replied, "Yes." One of the men asked his friend why they had the jobless and inexperienced Leo in their party, and the friend replied that apparently Leo had experienced escaping from Nonecumene. Leo overheard their conversation and became angry. A unique dungeon, Nonecumene, has spread throughout the entire city, centered on Sakurada Hospital, and is a significantly dangerous level B dungeon. Leo knows that the bonus is good, but because the layout is complex and the clearing difficulty is high, no one has been able to clear it since it appeared. He couldn't remove it either, but he managed to escape and become a player. However, he didn't awaken a job, which determines one's role in that world. So he has been stuck working as a guide there for years. A man praised everyone for their efforts, and Luca, a jurist with a B rank, told everyone to keep up the exploration. Luca asked him about their current status, and he replied that they were in an ideal position. Then he explained that the area between Satabori and the city center has only weak monsters and is rich in resources, so they can make a profit. Luca smiled and suggested heading for the center area, clearing the B-rank dungeon in one go. This made him nervous because he didn't want to risk his life, but Luca confidently insisted on leading the way. He told Luca to wait and explained that Nonecumene is no ordinary B-rank dungeon. With information on the central area that is only 10 years old, it was impossible for them to clear it. He believed they should first gather data on the monsters there. All of a sudden, a hand swiftly shot towards him, surprising him as it grabbed his neck more tightly. Luca sternly told him to pay attention and that they were there to clear the dungeon, so he should stay quiet and do his job. Luca even called him a jobless underachiever, sweating nervously. He apologized to Luca, and Luca eventually released his grip, noting that he was giving him special treatment because he had experienced escaping. He agreed and suggested they proceed to the central area, though in his mind, he was thinking about waiting for an opportunity to escape. However, a sword tip was pointed at his face, and Luca asked him seriously if he had any ulterior motive. If he didn't lead the way, he knew what would happen to him, a worthless nobody, trembling. He raised his hand and agreed to lead the way, fully aware that his situation was not looking good. Luca sheathed his sword and turned away, clearly annoyed, saying he had soiled his hand. Other players who had witnessed the exchange teased him, calling it lame and reminding him that as a jobless player, he should know better than to talk back to Luca, a B rank. Later, they reached their destination, and Luca asked him if this was the central area, but he silently called Luca an idiot in his mind. He knew they were in a nest area of monsters and planned to escape during the ensuing chaos once the battle began. Suddenly, one of the players called out to Luca, and they saw a B-rank monster approaching. He growled at them, and the players were surprised to see there were so many of them. However, Luca confidently unleashed his firepower, instructing everyone to stay calm as he used his formidable fire magic to take down the monsters, reminding the players that they were just B-rank creatures, making it an easy victory. Leo was awestruck by Luca's strength, realizing he was nearly as powerful as an A-rank player, which made him envious. He thought to himself that he wished he could become that strong too, but then, he felt his detection ability reacting, leaving him puzzled. He sensed a massive approaching presence, so he anxiously informed Luca that something formidable was approaching and that they needed to leave quickly. However, Luca responded angrily, questioning how someone like him could detect such things, and asked him to give it a rest. Leo was about to explain when the ground started to crack, causing panic among him and the other players. The ground collapsed, and they all fell below. Once underground, Luca angrily grabbed his collar and called him useless, accusing him of leading them into a trap, and even threatened to harm him. However, other players shouted for Luca to look at a monster approaching, diverting his attention. Leo noticed that his detection ability had disappeared, leaving him wondering what was happening. Luca pushed him to the ground, acknowledging his impressive feat and mentioning that he would reprimand him later. The monster stopped as it approached and asked if they wanted to play. One of the players informed Luca that it seemed to be time for their mission, while another asked if it was a monster boss. The system presented them with their mission to eliminate the unidentified object within a set time limit and obtain the hidden treasure of the uninhabitable zone, Nonecumene. Once more, Luca unleashed his powerful fire magic and confidently told the monster that he would reduce it to ashes. However, Leo was stunned to witness the monster suddenly vanish, leaving the other players to question if Luca had defeated it. Luca assumed it must still be nearby, urging everyone to remain vigilant. Unbeknownst to him, the monster was reappearing behind them. It attacked them, playfully uttering, "Meanie." One of the players encouraged the group not to back down, assuring them it was nothing special, and the players began their attacks. Yet, the monster swiftly captured several players with its numerous hands and inquired if they wanted to play. It then threw the captured players to the ground in a simultaneous, exuberant, and teasing manner. Leo couldn't believe that it had taken their lives, and he noticed there was no information available about this monster, leaving him baffled about what was happening. Suddenly, the monster slammed its hands near Leo, launching him into the air and causing him to collide hard with the wall. As he fell to the ground, he was shocked to see the monster in front of him. The monster claimed it smelled something familiar and addressed Leo as Daddy, asking if he was her father. This left Leo dumbfounded, as he wondered how he could have such a giant daughter. He realized this didn't make any sense at all. When the monster advised him to stay calm, Leo considered that perhaps there was a way out of this predicament. The monster agreed, lifting its clothing to reveal a large mouth on its belly and suggested they go home. It excitedly shouted that she gets to go home with her daddy. Leo pondered how things had come to this point as the monster grabbed him, laughing. He shouted for it to stop and listen to her daddy. However, it still tossed him inside its enormous mouth, causing him to wonder if this was how he would meet his end, and believing it was the worst way to go. Then, the system congratulated him for unlocking his hidden job as a dreadkeeper, similar to a zoo or aquarium worker. Moments later, he slowly opened his eyes and examined his hand. Realizing he hadn't been consumed, he looked around, questioning if he was back at his house. The news reporter on the television announced that it was the 30th of January in the year 210, and the time was 16. Leo grasped the significance of the date and time, realizing that this was 5 hours before the advent of Paradise Heaven. He wondered if he had somehow traveled back in time 10 years, and if he possessed the ability to redo his life if he were to die. He excitedly cheered, believing his prayers had been answered and that his new life was beginning. He was too absorbed in his thoughts to notice something appearing behind him. Hands slowly emerged, and the monster from earlier addressed him as Daddy, causing him to fall to the ground in shock. The monster mentioned that her tummy was empty, leaving Leo perplexed and anxious about what was happening. It stared hungrily at him, making him sweat in fear, fearing that he might be eaten again. Then, it extended its hand, grabbed him, and licked him, inquiring about dinner and introducing herself as Suzuko, explaining she was hungry. She asked him for food because she was hungry, and he hurriedly ran to get something, assuring her that he would make her something to eat. She sweetly agreed. A little while later, she asked him what it was, observing many buckets of chicken. He told her that it was all for her. She happily embraced him and expressed her love, leaving him wondering if it was a dream or something. Then she reached for a piece of chicken, took a bite, and joyfully chewed, remarking that it was delicious. She continued eating while he was busy accessing the system, thinking that feeding her might fill her up. When he looked at his status, he was astonished to find that he had a job called Dreadkeeper. He realized it was a unique job and wondered if he had awakened because of Suzuko. The system informed him that Suzuko was a B-rank boss, described as a kept monster corrupted zombie, and her current condition was imperfect and hungry. The system explained the kept monster's skill, predation, stating that consuming a monster had a 30% chance of acquiring the monster's abilities. He contemplated what might happen if Suzuko's condition became complete and if he could control other bosses as well through her. The system issued a warning that Suzuko had entered starvation mode with her hunger level at only 50%. In such a state, she would consume any living thing without distinguishing between friend or foe. Suzuko sweetly hugged him and addressed him as Daddy. The system revealed that she had a persistent hunger condition and asked him what to eat because she was still hungry. He thought that it had only been 5 minutes, and wondered if normal food was not sufficient. He patted her head, recognizing that for now he needed to keep her in a good mood